This game is Remnant from the Ashes. Now, I was a bit hesitant to get into this game at first because it is billed as having a focus on multiplayer, but watched a bit of gameplay on YouTube and it seemed interesting enough, so I got into it, and it's actually not that bad. So the story is, as far as I can tell, the world has been invaded by zombie trees, which are collectively known as the Root, which made for much puerile sniggering, especially when I met the NPC called the Root Mother. It's funny because Root is Australian slang for sex. For anyone interested in deeper in the story, for new players especially, I would advise exploring your home base area, Ward 13. Not only do you get quite a few goodies in there, but it's also a massive lore dump. Now, mechanically, this is quite a solid base of shooter-based gameplay. The controls do have a little bit of jank occasionally. The game does like to spawn enemies behind you, so it could definitely do with a control for a quick 180-degree turn. It's funny that most games where they tutorialise that you can turn around quickly, I do the tutorial for it and then completely forget it ever exists because I never needed it, but in this particular game it would be useful. Another thing about this game is it does have a stamina bar, which it really I don't think it needs. Stamina is not used for attacking at all. The only thing stamina is used for is sprinting and dodging. Dodging is not an instant I win button. It does have iframes, but not for the entire length of the animation, so you can still get hit. But even if you don't get hit, if you're dodging, you're not attacking, so at best you're not losing, but you're certainly not progressing through the game. And as far as sprinting goes, it's best used for getting through an area. Once you've explored a bit, you need to backtrack. There's no point jogging because the jogging speed is actually kind of slow, and that's the most important use of the sprint. So having it limited by stamina is actually kind of not great. Now, one other thing I would like to note about the gameplay mechanics is the world is procedurally generated. So every time you play, it will be a different world. Having said that, the world is made up of the same sort of buildings and boxes and rooms, and it all looks very similar, but it is different. You'll get different items, maybe different quests, different bosses, and if you don't like the world you've been given, you can re-roll it. There's an option at the checkpoints so that you can start again effectively, but keeping your character progression. Now, this footage is of a boss fight. Obviously, you can tell by the big red health bar at the top of the screen. And it's in boss fights that the focus on co-op really shows through. Now, the bosses themselves are not particularly difficult. You can see I'm doing fairly solid damage to this boss. But they tend to spawn hordes of adds, and adds in a boss fight is one of the laziest boss mechanics in video games, probably next only to QTEs. But I've heard it argued that the reason for all these adds is because they are ammo drops, essentially. I don't agree with this argument. For one, this is not a survival horror game. You are not limited in ammo. This is evidenced by the fact that when you rest at a checkpoint, your ammo is completely refilled. So if the entire reason for adds is just for ammo, then increase the amount of ammo you could hold. Another way would just be to just give random drops throughout the fight anyway. Don't worry about reasons, just hand wave that away. And of course the game does actually have a consumable called ammo boxes, which refills your ammo anyway. So I don't see a need for all these adds for ammo. It's purely based on co-op. It makes the fight, in co-op I am assuming that it would just make the fight more co-op focused. You have one person can hold off the adds while another attacks the boss directly, that kind of thing. But it's obviously not balanced for single player, and when I finally beat a boss, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything particularly. I just feel, relief that I can get back to the exploration of the world, which is something I find just more interesting in this game. Now, having said that, would I recommend this game? If you like co-op shooters, then yes, it's actually pretty damn good. If you are like me and you prefer to play things solo, it's still good. You just got to be aware that you are getting into something that is designed around multiplayer co-op, and take that for what it's worth. I'll leave you now with the footage of me finally beating this particular boss.
I'm in trouble. Oh, yeah.